From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello. Welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, lightning round, live taping of people's questions on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. It's great to have you here tuning in, whether you are in from Lethbridge, Alberta, or over in Iceland, or Brittany in Italy. Wherever it is you might be tuning in from, it's really great to have you here. Anchorage, Alaska, whatever it is. I am joined in studio by my fellow producers, Casey, who resides over in the booth. She's got her own little house over there, it seems. No one's allowed in there except her. And then right next to me, I've got Rob the Rocket, the master technician. Rob, what say ye?
Rocket in the house, yeah. Do you have an earworm lately? You asked me about that in an earlier episode. What's in your head? Besides this podcast, I know you listen to it a lot.
I do not have an earworm in my ear. Rob, what's been your earworm lately?
The Needle and the Damage Done by Neil Young.
What's the tune or the words?
Well, it's about a junkie. I've seen The Needle and the Damage Done, a little bit of it in everyone, but every junkie's like the setting sun. It's very sad, but it's a lovely tune.
Leave it to Neil Young to cast a pall over any setting. God bless him, one of the great American folk artists. Brilliant. Oh, that's an interesting earworm. I did not even know that song existed, Rob. You got me once again. All right, here you go, guys. So we're getting started on your questions. And Ryan Stone had a question for me, and he asked it last session. I asked him to bring it again, and God bless him, you did, Ryan. Thanks, buddy. All right, Ryan asked a simple question. Sven, can you explain what it means, badass? There's the generic meaning, obviously, and I'll give you that one. And then there's the meaning in which, or for which, by which I use it. What I mean when I use it. Badass, generally speaking, English for English speakers, or particularly in North America. I can't speak to all my Aussie folk down there, or New Zealanders, but I think it registers pretty much with all of us that badass means, someone who's really good at something. In the old days, badass might have meant, oh, he's a killer, he's a beast, he beats people up, that sort of thing. That's the sort of cliche old school meaning. But really, a badass is a compliment. It's like saying, he's killer, or man, he is just, it's a high level compliment generally. Someone's a badass, they're great at something. But it also implies a measure of sort of toughness or grit. Not necessarily meanness. There's not necessarily a negative affect to the meaning, but it's just someone who's great and has toughness about them, that sort of thing. Now, how I use badass counseling, what does that mean? That I'm just trying to make everybody tough? No. In fact, just the opposite very often. What a badass really is when it comes to sort of the human soul and being a fully integrated, authentic human being, to be badass means you're not just, let's say, tough. For man, you're not just the tough guy, macho guy, but you're also comfortable with your soft, gentle side, that you've integrated sort of both sides, the dark side and the light side, that you've integrated all aspects of your person into a complete and complex and authentic person. All right. To be a badass, if you're, someone who's been conditioned, as many women are, at least in North America, if you've been conditioned to be soft and meek and mild and always give, and always, eat shit and all that, to be badass means that you've integrated your strong, tough side, and that you stand up for yourself, and you have learned and feel comfortable with the word no, and that you insist that your needs be met, that your voice be heard. And so it's not that you're not capable of or even eager to give and be kind, but it's in this yin-yang relationship, this ebb and flow relationship, with also your eagerness and willingness to stand up for yourself and say, no, that's not okay. No, my needs matter too. So it's someone who has integrated the soft and the strong, someone who can live as they authentically are, moment to moment. And for a lot of guys, it's a real challenge, showing the soft side or showing their weakness, quote unquote weakness, showing their tears, showing their feelings. And they say, well, that's not badass to show that stuff. Really? I look at it differently. It's not badass to always go tough guy, because you're choosing an utterly arbitrary notion of what it means to be a man. All I'm saying as a badass is that you're allowing yourself to be and express what you're actually feeling in the moment. Because you may think, well, I don't feel softness, I don't feel sadness, I don't feel tears. I say, yeah, bullshit. Tell me that when your hunting dog of 15 years passed away. Tell me you don't feel something. When your 7-year-old daughter is going in for her 3rd surgery. Tell me you're not feeling sad and terrified. Yeah, it's bullshit. All you're saying is, I'm just not going to show those feelings because it's not considered manly. And I'm like, that's stupid. You're letting someone else's definition of what it means to be a man define how you act and what you show moment to moment. Why not just show what you feel? To me, being a total badass is I just show what I feel moment to moment. What the hell do I care if someone thinks I'm tough or not? That's how I go about life. I tear up. I had to talk to our city council. They were considering putting it was like petroleum byproducts into the asphalt that the city contractor was going to be, the person that the city contracted to was going to be using some sort of petroleum, something or another, or higher amount of petroleum in the asphalt. And I ride my bike a lot in my city, right? When I take breaks in between counseling clients and so forth. And one of the areas where I ride, it's actually right in my neighborhood. It's on a slope, and my backdoor neighbor, her driveway slants down right into the street. And from there's another driveway that slants down from the street into our reservoir. And I know from riding my bike that there are always big puddles out on the street from where water has run off of her yard and pooled in the street. Well, they couldn't tell me whether or not that the products in the asphalt leach into the water. And so if it's leaching into the water and then that water is running off down into the reservoir, that means our water source is being touched by water and has water in it that's leached petroleum products. And so I don't know the science on it, but I was just standing up to the city council saying, hey, we need to get the science to find out, to protect our water. We're drinking that shit, right? We're feeding that to our animals, right? Putting that in our food, Dave, where you grow your own garden. And so I went before city council. This is all this long lead up simply to tell you about feelings. I go before our city council and I wanted to open and get 2 minutes, but I wanted to open by thanking them because in our city council is not paid. These are volunteers, good citizens trying to do what's right for the city. And I thanked them. And I said, I really appreciate all the hours you guys put in. And I started to tear up. I wasn't even watching a sad movie. I just got emotional out of gratitude. But that's who I am. It's like, fuck it. Oh, tough guy means you don't show feelings. You don't express tears. Bullshit. You're just ascribing to some archaic notion of men are just tough all the time. That's dumb. To me, to be badass, long story short, Ryan, to be badass means you're just being who you authentically are moment to moment. Now, there are times when it's not appropriate, when you might want to choke those tears down for whatever reason. Sure, of course. But the bottom line is, to be badass means to be who you are authentically. It means to integrate all aspects of yourself, even those that other people may not like about you. You got the guts? All right, next question. All right. Here's a question I get, and this is Troy. Getting a lot of the men questions tonight. I like this. Troy says to me over on TikTok, why am I not wanting to read your book? Well, I've got 5 siblings that could probably answer that question. I wouldn't want to listen to his bullshit either. No, I'm teasing. But Troy goes on to say, why am I not wanting to read your book? I have it on my bedside table. What am I running from? It's funny you say that, Troy, because the chapter 3 of the book, he's referring to my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. It's become an international bestseller, and, it's number 3 on the whatever bestseller list on Amazon, and it has been for, I think, 9 months, something like that. And I bounce around between number 3 and number 2. And I hear this a lot. People get the book, and they open it. Maybe they read the first chapter, and they set it down, or they read the introduction, and they set it down. Because it's just churning things up. Or some people who say, Sven, I bought it and it has been sitting on my cupboard, not because I haven't had time. I'm scared of your books, man, if I'm really honest. But it's not even my book. It's what I and my book represent. And that is that healing means going down into the shit you've been running from your whole life. And you asked the question, Troy, what am I running from? It's funny you say that because chapter 3 in the book is literally titled, You're Running. Go to chapter 3. Go to chapter 3. Not now. Go when you can read it. And what you're running from is all the pain, all the suffering, all the hurt, all the anger, all those feelings you don't want to feel because you're convinced perhaps that if I bring up all the feelings, it would overwhelm me. I would explode. I'd turn into a dragon, with so many emotions. It would suck my life down. And so my book helps you to do it sort of in spurts, to sort of microdose that pain, to sort of microdose these steps. But the bottom line is, Troy, when it comes to doing self-work and healing work, whether it's with my book or one of the other 9 books I recommend in my book that aren't my book. There are 9 different books there. There are about 5 that are really, really, really great in that list that I tell people, you don't have to read my book, read their stuff. I don't care if I profit off it or not. I'm doing fine. They're putting food on the table. I just want you to heal. So whether you're reading my book or somebody else's book, it's scary shit to say to yourself, I finally want to go into this and heal. And why are you running? And it's not just the feelings that your past represents, but it's going into and discerning the real truths of your past, of family, and of what's really going on inside of you. And the truth is, that's just intimidating shit, Troy. There's nothing wrong with not diving into self-healing work. The bottom line is, when it's time, you'll know. You'll pick it up. Whether with fanfare or without, you'll pick it up and you'll begin. And you'll begin with trepidation and you'll begin at your own speed, and that's okay. Self-help work, you do at your own speed. Or if you're doing it to augment your counseling, which I strongly recommend, if you get 1 hour counseling with your therapist a week, you got to be doing some shit outside a session, or your healing is going to be so fucking slow, especially if you're in counseling and you're just talking about the last week and, in this last week, my boss yelled at me, and you're not going into the original roots of your problem. That means being able to go backwards, which is why 1 hour a week, it's like, fuck, man, you can't get enough done. You got to be doing that work outside a session. It's like when I was an NCAA head coach for strength and conditioning, I was always screaming at my athletes, championships are won and lost in the off season. They are won and lost in the off season, doing the training out of season when no one's watching. It's especially doubly, triply the same with counseling. That you win and lose, you accelerate the velocity of your healing by all the stuff you're doing outside of session. And the more you're in it, the more you got to be willing to go into that stuff. It takes courage. So, Troy, when it's time, you'll be ready. Next question. Rob, go ahead.
This is one of the most impactful questions I've seen while we've been doing this.
Love
Are you
it.
ready?
Let's hear it.
This is from April. You may remember that name.
I do.
Since my episode on your podcast, I've been told all this positive stuff about me, how brave and amazing I am. It doesn't settle in. How do I get the good to outweigh the bad messages in my head? This is April, who, when she was 6 years old, had her mother bring all these guys home from a bar to sexually abuse her. The episode was entitled Blood on the Sheets.
Yes, and you can listen to that episode. We put it up, mid-July, Rob?
It is from, it's from July 25th it dropped.
You want to hear a powerful episode of the podcast, folks, go to the July 25th, Rob, episode. It is an extraordinarily powerful episode. And this is one of those, episodes when I get people in my practice or wanting to be on the show or who've been on the show, people have such extraordinary stories of all different types and flavors. And then there are some that are just so off the wall, extraordinary. True. And I take people at their word, and I know April was telling the truth, but that's not the issue. The point is, there are some stories that are just heinous at a completely different level. So when people say, oh, Sven, I got a story that'll blow your socks off, it's like, well, I know April's story, so I'm betting you won't. But point is, April is wondering articulate that one sentence of her question.
People tell me how brave and amazing I am. It doesn't settle in. How do I get the good to outweigh the bad messages in my head?
You get the good. It's not that you're trying to get the good to outweigh the bad. It's that you're trying to get rid of the bad. You don't make yourself feel better. Oh, Sven, why can't I focus on the good in my life? Or what do I got to do to conjure up more energy to get motivated to go to work or whatever it is? We don't make ourselves happy. One of the things that I talk about in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, is the single biggest, and I think you'll be able to see the parallel here, April. So stay with me, all right? And by the way, it's great to hear from you again, April. We loved having you on the show. One of the things I talk about in the book, and Troy, you will learn this as you get further into the book, is that we don't one of the single biggest mistakes people make in trying to get happy is they do more things to make them happy. You heard me. The single biggest mistake people make in trying to get happier is they do more things that make them happy. That's a piece of the equation. But the real problem isn't that you're not doing enough things to make you happy. That's a piece of it, sure. But the real problem, the best way to think about it is imagine everything that makes you happy, or let's change the language to everything that breathes energy into, that gives you life, that energizes you. So for my sister-in-law, it's gardening. She loves gardening. She spends hours in her gardening. For me, it's getting on my bike and just riding. Just on my regular cross trainer or whatever, going in the city. and just going in New York City traffic. I love it. All right. I get my aggression out. Whatever it is, those things that you just love that give you energy. Imagine every one of those is a diamond you are holding cupped in your hands in front of you. All right. And so many people think, well, if I want to get happier, I need to add another diamond. I need to add more diamonds that I'm holding in front of me in my hands. But here's the problem. You can have as many diamonds as you want, as many things that breathe life into you as you want. But if you have giant sewer pipes dumping raw sewage onto your head, and by raw sewage, I mean half-eaten cans of tuna, cigarette butts, human excrement, all that dumping onto your head, it doesn't matter how many fucking diamonds you have. You will not be able to see, taste, touch, smell those diamonds. Why? Because you're closing your eyes and you're closing your mouth and you're trying to close everything from that raw sewage that's dumping on you, but you got to breathe. So you breathe in and, all of a sudden you got fucking raw sewage up your nose and you're trying to look at my diamonds. I want to look at my diamonds so I'm happier because I got all this sludge. If all that sludge and raw sewage represents all the negative energy sources in your life, they're so overwhelming you that you can't see, you can't taste, you can't touch, you can't smell those sources of positive energy in your life. It doesn't matter how many fucking diamonds you have if you have raw sewage, if you have negative energy sources in your life. So the biggest mistake people make in trying to get happier is they think, I'll just increase my diamonds. No. You have to decrease the sources of raw sewage in your life. You have to decrease those things that suck the energy out of you. And see, that's where it's tricky for a lot of people because I don't like to say no. I don't want to stand up. I don't want to stand up for myself. My voice doesn't matter. I'm not important enough. I'm terrified of hurting their feelings. And so you don't stand up for yourself. It doesn't matter how many happy things you do. You're just forcing life. It doesn't matter how many fucking gratitude lists you make. And I'm all for gratitude lists, but if you've got a massive amount of raw sewage in your life, I don't give a shit how many gratitude lists you make. It's not going to make the raw sewage magically go away. It's not going to magically make you get happier. At some point, you have to begin to reduce the list of raw sewage in your life. And here's the thing about raw sewage, though. You have to keep reducing it, because even if you just have a garden hose going drip, 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 drip of raw sewage on you, it's not as much. You'll be able to appreciate those diamonds a lot more, but it's going to reach a point where it gets down and it's in your eyes, it's in your mouth, it's in your nose, it gets down your crack. And you're kind of, all you can smell is still that raw sewage. And yeah, you can see your diamonds, but it's sort of clouded by the raw sewage. The task to becoming happier, the task, April, to being able to hear and accept and welcome and feel those compliments that you get, people who genuinely mean it, April, is you have to get out those core beliefs that say, I suck, I'm worthless, I don't matter, I'm unwantable, I'm unlovable. You have to go into that. And that's what the tools are for, April. That's what There's a Hole in My Love Cup is for. And you have to be willing to go deeper and deeper, especially when you've had massive childhood trauma. You have to be willing to go further and further into that, because in there is your salvation from that raw sewage, because the raw sewage is inside of you. It's the core beliefs that you've been taught to believe about yourself. And my book is geared specifically towards identifying and extracting those core beliefs that are undermining you from the inside. It's raw sewage from the inside. It's not enough to just focus on the positive. You have to focus on the negative and begin to do the work to excise it. Next question. How do I get a narcissistic, overstepping grandparent to respect my boundaries and stop spreading lies? My first question that I would ask you, Tamara, if you and I were in session, the first question I would ask you is, apart from getting your grandpa to stop his actions, what is it you're wanting from your relationship with grandpa? Yes, I understand you want him to stop, overstepping and self-absorption and so forth. What are you wanting from him, from the relationship? What's keeping you in this relationship? Is it what I want is I don't want to piss off my parents by cutting off my grandpa? In other words, I want to keep a good relationship with my parents, and that's the only reason I maintain this relationship with grandpa? Or is it that I'm in grandpa's will and I want to get the money from grandpa? Or is it I keep hoping grandpa will say something nice and approve of me because grandpa raised me? What is it? Why are you in this relationship with someone who oversteps and is narcissistic or self-absorbed or what I call an extreme taker? You must be in it for something, hoping to get something. And as long as you are wanting something from someone, they have the ability to make you miserable by withholding it. And if we want something from someone, we are inclined oftentimes to not stand up for ourselves. Because if I stand up for myself, you may not give me what I want. So it helps to identify why exactly you're in this relationship. What are you wanting? And then the question becomes, would you be willing to let it go if it meant reducing the raw sewage in the form of grandpa in your life and in the form of his self-absorption and extreme taking and overstepping? But otherwise, to answer your question straight, how do I get them to respect my boundaries? By you respecting your boundaries. Don't back down. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Do not back down. Don't show weakness. Just stand up and keep standing up. Even if he gets pissed, even if he whines, even if he whatever, do not back down. Keep standing up. However, I would think that potentially the better long-term solution is to identify why it is you're staying in this relationship and consider the fact that maybe it's time to get out of this relationship. One more question here before the break. Question from Eileen. Is your book at Barnes & Noble? All of my books in audiobook, ebook, and paperback are available at badasscounseling.com. When you click the ebook link, it takes you over to Barnes & Noble. I have that listed over at Barnes & Noble because they are kinder to authors. I took it off of Kindle on Amazon because Amazon tends to screw with authors. And that is the same reason I took my audiobook off of Audible. The audiobook is available on my website, badasscounseling.com, but they tend to screw with authors when it comes to royalties and pricing unilaterally without author permission, believe it or not. So paperback, ebook, and audiobook are all available at badasscounseling.com. Much more to come, fine people, right after this break.
I counseled with Badass Counseling for about 4 months, and Sven completely turned my life around. He kicked my butt. No shit. He made me do homework too, but I was so ready for a change that I just did it all. I'm telling you, he changed my life. Thank you so much, Badass Counseling.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
And we are back with a lightning round episode. I'm taking live questions on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTuber. It is good to have you here. And we've got questions coming in from all over. So let's take a look. Who have we got here? Amber throws up the question here on TikTok. As an empath, how can I become less sensitive? All right. Implicit in your question is you don't like being so sensitive. It doesn't feel good, right? I'm going to tell you my experience, all right? That we generally become who we are because we've been conditioned to become it. Someone who is an empath are so tuned into the feelings of others. All right, whether organically or because you just are focused on that, what have you, is that part of it is, and I would offer a significant part, is you are conditioned to believe that you're supposed to be tuned into the feelings of others. You've been conditioned to believe that your existence revolves around the existence of others. And so what it requires to begin to sort of de-wire that circuitry inside of you, that belief system, is to go inside and find out where these core beliefs came from. If we can acknowledge that maybe part of my empathy, my being an empath, comes not from something genetic, but from something I've been conditioned to be, then I have to go back into the origins of what I've been conditioned to be, how I've been conditioned to act, but most importantly, what I've been conditioned to believe about my existence. Because my existence has been defined of what I am supposed to be, what I am supposed to do, what I'm supposed to be bringing to life in order to have a sense of worth. And I would offer that you were conditioned to believe that your worth, your value is found in your being tuned into others, attending to their needs, wants, feelings more than your own. In other words, you've been taught to negate your significance, your existence, your worth. And until you go back in and find the origins of that, you're not going to heal that. And again, that's what the book's for. Next question. Very good question here. Will Willison asks, how much of a relief have you seen in clients? And I'm going to open this one up to the group. If you guys have your answers, go ahead and write them in for Rob up there on YouTube and for me here on TikTok and on Facebook. I want to open this question up to the group. Will asked a really good question, legit, a heartfelt question. Will asked the question, how much of a relief have you seen in clients? Which implies to me Will is considering cutting an extreme taker out of his life. And he wants to know in advance, is it worth it, is what I'm hearing. And so to you guys, I'm opening it up to you. How much relief, if you have cut an extreme taker out of your life, how much relief have you experienced? Now, I've got Caribou saying, well, it takes time. I've got Jill over here on TikTok saying 100%. Amber says it's life-changing. Puppy Love says life-changing. Justin says, 100% relief. Kimberly says yes. Kathy Davis on Facebook says yes. Teresa Mary, 100% worth it. Kate, Andrew Jeske, so much. Aches and pains tend to disappear, says Jessica. Rebecca says it's complete freedom. Magnolia says no more stress. Becca Bow says yes, 100%. I mean, come on, guys. Rob, you got anything over there on YouTube?
No, I'm guessing it cures acne, though. I don't know.
And point is, Joe says it's so worth it. Will, does this help answer your question? I'm betting it does. You're hearing from the choir here, man, and everyone's, Will says, ha, ha, ha. So you're saying it's a go? Yeah, well, it's a go. And it's, but you got to do the work. And he said that in his original question. Sven, if I actually do the work that you talk about and the work in your book and that you talk about on the podcast, is there an actual marked difference? And everyone is chiming in here saying, oh, hell yeah. Tommy Newhook says, yep. All right. So next question, people. That was a good one, Willow. You got the crowd involved. It's like when Queen goes out there or a rock star's going out there and putting it out there for the crowd to sing. I just let the crowd sing, man. All right. Next question.
I got Doris here on
All right.
YouTube.
What does Doris have to say?
I think I understand this. She says, hello, Rob and Sven. I have treated people how I wanted to be treated myself, but never held boundaries. Now I hold boundaries and also then start to treat them like they treat me.
Oh.
Am I warranted?
What, holding boundaries? Treating others the way they treat you? Yeah, you're warranted. That's kind of the point. I actually love that you're doing that, Doris. I really do. Because fundamentally what you're doing is you're training people how to treat you, which requires boundaries. Because if you don't have boundaries, people will allow. It's like a cow. If there's no fence there, the cow is going to wander off the field. I have some clients who are farmers, who are ranchers. I have one young woman, she's a client and rancher family and so forth. And I'm always learning about stuff. I learned about foot rot. I learned about when a calf is born and it doesn't, and there's actually a psychological phenomenon where the calf doesn't know it's been born and it still thinks it's in utero. And so it's not doing the things like standing up and so on and so forth. I learned all sorts of things from her. And one of the things I learned, what the hell was this question again, Rob?
This is Doris who says, I've treated people the way I've wanted to be treated,
yes.
but I've never had boundaries. And now that I do,
yes.
Can I treat them in any which way I choose, even though I used to think it was not the right thing?
Yes. And so the rancher told me, if you don't have fences, obviously your cows are going to wander away. And some cows, after they've had a calf and the calf dies, they'll hop over the fence and they'll wander. In other words, that people will treat you in the ways that you have fences around them. And the more someone earns your trust and treats you well, you can open up, you can create a little bit wider boundaries. But you don't just have a right, you have a responsibility to teach people how to treat you and you treating them back. Now, if you're being malicious, if they're malicious to you and you're treating them maliciously back, you're engaged in a petty game. And I would encourage you to just walk away from someone that's engaged in treating you poorly or maliciously, rather than insisting on treating them poorly or maliciously, because that implies vengeance and anger. And you're allowing vengeance and anger to take residence in your heart, but you do have every right to stand up for you. And not only every right, you have to. You have to. And I love that you're setting boundaries. I think that's fantastic. Cripes, that's 50% of my clientele right there. If I could, help them get to the point where you're at, Doris, I'd consider it a great day. So no, I support you 100%. You're doing just great. Did I miss the question, Rob?
You got it. And Marie comments, I was working on that after 29 years and got divorced. If I had had boundaries, I wouldn't have stayed.
Oh, wow. I love that. And that's what I was talking about on a previous session. I'm making a course right now on badass dating. And one of the things that this notion of setting boundaries early and calling out poor behavior or when someone's letting you down, because if you call it out sooner, then you'll know they'll be forced to either change sooner or you'll see that they're not interested in changing. So you're short-circuiting a relationship at the beginning rather than waiting for these cancers to metastasize into 5 or 25 years down the road. And now it's this giant fucking problem. Whereas if you're willing to end a relationship early, if someone's being rude or it's not meeting your needs, you're sparing yourself so much pain. But what happens when we start dating? Oh, I want this person. Oh, it'll go away. Oh, it's no big deal. Oh, I can take it. And we start saying this stupid shit and we go further into a relationship that probably should have been nipped in the bud sooner. So I love that follow-up comment from the person that said, Cripes, if I would have set my boundaries earlier, I would have been gone earlier. That's kind of the point. Okay, gotta have one of these every now and then. Mrs. Gomez says, do you believe a cheating husband can truly be remorseful? How do you forgive and trust? Can a cheating person truly be remorseful? Yes, but I wouldn't trust it right away. You want to know why I wouldn't trust it right away? Because they've just breached trust. And now their mouth is moving, but they have actions indicating that you can't trust them. So it's their mouth moving, which is very, 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 very easy to do. Oh, I love you. I miss you. I feel so bad. I'll never do it again. That's easy. Fuck, I just said it. Huh. Imagine how much easier it must be for your husband to say it. Well, listen to me. Watch this, Mrs. Gomez. Watch how easily I'm going to pretend to be remorseful. Oh, sweetheart, I feel so bad. I shouldn't have done it. It was horrible. It was stupid. I fucked up so bad. It will never happen again. I swear to you. What do I need to do to prove it to you? I swear it was dumb. God, it was dumb. I hate myself for doing it. In other words, I can say all sorts of shit, but it doesn't matter because you have actions that lasted longer than that 30-second apology. Even if the apology is incessant, it's just words. Do you want to know how you know if you can trust them again? By proven action over time. People jump back into relationships far too quickly after breaches in trust. Far too quickly. Do you want to know why? Because they're listening to the yammering. You're listening to a sales pitch. They're listening to promises. Oh, I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again. So you're willing to ignore or minimize actions causing significant breach in trust. You're willing to ignore that based on a promise that requires nothing to make. No. You want to really see if you can trust them? Check out of the relationship for a year. Tell them to just get the hell away from me for a year. Let's see if you still want it in a year. Let's see how fucking remorseful you are in a year. Minimize your contact with them. But most importantly, you want to know what the single biggest thing is? Most important thing you have to do if there's been poor treatment in the past, abuse in the past, cheating in the past. Do you want to know what the single most important thing is that you have to do for your own happiness and safety? It's not wait and see if they change their actions. That's important. Most importantly, thing you have to do is you have to change you. Well, why do you say that, Sven? Are you saying I caused the cheating? No, slow down, sugar tits. All right, Tommy, just slow down. Tommy, what I'm saying is, or Susie, what I'm saying is, you have to change you so that you are willing to stand up every time in the slightest way they hurt you or backslide or start slipping back into old patterns. Because if you don't change you, you won't stand up and hold them accountable. I'm not saying you caused the cheating at all. I'm saying you are going to be disinclined because you are in an emotionally vulnerable state. You are going to be disinclined to stand up for yourself. But if you do the work on your own healing and your own changing, you won't tolerate someone treating you poorly. That means you will be able to hold them accountable. They're responsible for holding themselves accountable, but you can count on the fact that they are going to slip, or they're just not going to give a shit after 3 months or 6 months. That means you're going to have to hold them accountable. You're going to have to stand up for them yourself. And if you haven't done the work on you of healing all the pain from this traumatic event, you're not going to stand up for yourself, which means you're going to allow someone to walk all over you. You're not going to have the boundaries. You're going to slide back into the exact same bullshit patterns of allowing them to take advantage of you or hurt you. But you can't work on it together. You work on it individually. You can't work on the relationship for some time. They need to work on themselves to go into what the hell caused them to do this fucked up shit, because it wasn't about the marriage. And you need to go into yourself and heal yourself from all this pain and trauma that this caused. Next question.
Well, I have one here from Ralph, who checked in
Yeah,
before we
in our
started.
UPS truck. Ralph
delivery
checked in at the
driver.
beginning of the show. He's in a UPS truck making deliveries in California. Everybody say hi, Ralph. Hi, Ralph.
Ralph says, after many months of therapy, I've realized I'm a people pleaser. I've been trying to stand up for my needs for once, but I still feel insanely guilty for saying no. What do I need to do to get past it?
Yeah, Ralph, you feel insanely guilty because you were conditioned at a young age to believe that your needs, your wants, your feelings don't matter. You're always pleasing someone else as a way fundamentally of purchasing their love, their appreciation. They're wanting you, they're liking you. And there's a fear underneath you driving that if I'm not constantly giving, they may not like me. In other words, you're engaged in a sort of sales technique. I'm going to give a whole bunch to you. Just give me a little bit in return, because that little bit in return confirms my worth to me. It's a little bit of love. And as I talk about in my book, there's a hole in my love cup. you can go a long distance on a little bit of love. So you're happy to give a lot. You just want a little bit of love, because by even having someone in your company that you can hold on to who gives you a little bit of love, their mere presence confirms your worth. And when they leave, what happens is those voices inside of you from your childhood start saying, see, I suck. See, I'm no good. See, nobody wants to be with me. But as long as I've got someone with me, even if they're beating the hell out of me, even if they're yelling at me, even if they're hurting me, even if they're taking advantage of me, even if they're using me, at least they're there. And the mere fact that someone wants to be with me is a counter message to all the messages I got growing up that said, you suck, you're unlovable, you're not worthy. See, you're no good. See, nobody wants you. It's a counter message to those. But when they leave, that is far more painful than giving lots of love to get a little bit in return. Ralph, what you've got to go do is go inside and work on and begin to identify and flush out, which is what my book is for. There's a hole in my love cup. You need to begin to flush out and determine those core beliefs that you were taught about your own lack of value, your feelings not mattering, your wants not mattering, you not mattering, that you exist to make others happy. The more you begin to identify and extricate or excise, to cut out those core beliefs, but particularly to identify them, because naming the beast is half the problem. The more you do that, the less you will feel guilty. But in the meantime, you're feeling guilty, and what you got to do every time you're feeling guilty, whether you do it in the moment or you do it on your break, on your route, and you sit down with a pad of paper, or you do it at the end of the day, or maybe you start your day with it, is you need to be journaling on your feelings of guilt. You need to be flushing out the feelings of guilt. The first part I told you was going into the origins to find out where those feelings of guilt and you not mattering come from. But when you're feeling the actual feelings of guilt, journal about it. I feel so fucking guilty saying this. God, I'm such a piece of shit. I hate myself so much. I really shouldn't be doing this, but it feels so good to stand up for myself, and I really want to stand up for myself, but I feel bad. Flush it all out. Keep flushing it out, because the more those thoughts and feelings churn and churn and churn inside of you, like clothes in a clothes dryer that won't turn off, the bigger they get. Unlike the clothes in your clothes dryer, the more you leave it in there in the heat, the smaller they get. Your problems get bigger. Flushing it out often has this power of decharging them. It's like, maybe it isn't such a big problem. I hope that helps, Ralph. By the way, Ralph, you got a lot of shout outs here on TikTok and on Facebook. All right, we're going to take just one or two more questions, folks. And then Rob and I and KC are going to call it a day, people. All right. I like what Michelle Champion says here on Facebook. She says, Ralph, flushing it out, like Sven's talking about, allows space for good to come in. I like that. I had a client whose mother once said to him, or used to say to him as a child, something along the lines, by crying out the bad, we make room for the good. Sort of what you're saying there, Michelle. I like that. It's giving the adult permission to get the pain out.
Yeah, Marie says, lose all the takers, Ralph.
I like that. That's beautiful. Here we go. This is Nicole, and I think this is something that a lot of people can perhaps identify with. Nicole says, and listen up closely, we're talking about the work dichotomy split here, people, so listen up. Or the work home life split and the sense of identity. Nicole says, I don't know who I am outside of the person I am at work and being a mother. How do I find who I am? You find who you are. How do I find who I am? So your work gives you a sense of identity, and being a mother gives you a sense of identity. And yet, wouldn't it be safe to say in both of those cases, you're investing in someone else's ventures. You're a cog in somebody else's wheel. You're invested in serving someone else. And so what I would encourage you to do is in your daily journaling, Nicole, or your weekly journaling, if you're journaling, and I strongly recommend you do, because it's not enough to just have these conversations in your head. The more we get things out of us, we have a sense of objectivity. Now we're looking at the problem on the paper, or even if you do talk to text and then you go back and read it and edit it, you're seeing it. And there's something very powerful about seeing our story in writing. And so you're asking, how do I find who I am? My question to you, I want to ask you this question. What % of your life, Nicole, and this is for anybody, you can ask this question. If you struggle with knowing who you are or feeling right about your life, answer this question for you. What % of your life, is it 20%? Is it 73%? What % of your life is stuff, people, things, beliefs, actions, things that consume your time? What % of your life is not you? And the better way of saying that is this. Think about your energy. Think about things in life that give you energy and things in life that bleed your energy, that suck the life out of you, that bleed you, that bore you, that numb you, that you have to conjure up energy just to do. What percent of your life is those things that bleed you, bore you, numb you, suck your energy out of you, or that you have to conjure up your energy to do? What percent of your life? Is it 47%? Is it 91%? What percent? Do you want to know how you more find who you are? Well, yes, I do, Sven. That's why I asked the fucking question. Nicole was probably thinking. Just kidding. How do you find you begin to remove that which is not you? Well, how do I know what's not me? It feels like shit. It sucks your energy out of you. In the Hindi language, there's a word neti, N-E-T-I or N-E-T-T-I. And neti simply means not this. And I love that word, neti. Sometimes in life, we don't know what the path is. All we can say is neti. Oh, neti to that. Oh, no, serious neti to that. Not this. No, it's not this. The path to discovering who we are requires discovering who we're not, which requires a willingness to try things in life. But more importantly, in addition to trying it, it's the willingness to quit things that are sucking the life energy out of you. So whatever that percentage is, Nicole, I would encourage you, that percentage of things in your life that are sucking your life energy out of you, I would encourage you to begin to reduce those, even if you're just reducing them a bit, even if you're not cutting them out entirely. Though some of them you're probably going to want to cut out entirely, but to begin to reduce those sources of negative energy, those raw sewage sources in your life, the more you begin to do that, you want to know what happens? Your authentic self begins to effortlessly blossom up, shoot up through the ground like tulips and jonquils and daffodils and lily of the valley in springtime. They naturally, those shoots poke through the ground. So you finding your authentic self, it's not about anything out there you have to find or go discover. It's just remove from your life presently that which is keeping your authentic self packed down, because your authentic self is already there. It's already inside of you. It's encoded in you. Just remove those things that suck the life out of you and have the courage to begin to pursue those things that kind of give you energy, or you think might give you energy, or once gave you energy. That's it. It's just about following your energy. And in that regard, there's a book that is, for me, one of my Bibles, so to speak. It's a book that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, became an international bestseller. So the second one for this author, the author's name is Shakti, Shakti, Gawain, named after the Knight of the Round Table, Sir Gawain. Shakti Gawain, sort of new agey type book, some of the language is, but it's pretty straightforward. And what Shakti talks about in this book, and this is one of, it's just so simply written, and I love it. I recommend it to all my clients. In fact, in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. It's one of the 9 recommended books by other authors that I recommend to folks. And Shakti talks about how fundamentally all you've got to do to become happier and have more peace and more sense of aliveness is simply begin to read your energy. Your energy is talking. That which gives you energy is you. That which bleeds your energy isn't you. That which produces a state of calm or a state of relief or a state of exuberance, that is you. If it produces any sort of negative energy, it's not you. It's sucking the life out of you. Now, every path has some bad days. We're not talking about the occasional bad day. We're saying over time, does it breathe life into you or suck life out of you? All right, people. All right, I'm going to ask one more, or I'm going to answer one more question, and then I think we are going to call it a day. Rob, have you got one for me there, young man? If not, I've got a couple here. The book is called, by the way, Edmund, the book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. Shakti Gawain's book is titled Living in the Light. It is no longer in print, to the best of my knowledge. And I've people who have said the audiobook, they don't care for the reading. It's not as interesting as the book itself. There is a new agey lilt to the book, and so just overlook that if that's not your thing. But it's really a powerful, good book. And yes, to answer a few of your questions, my book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. You can get it at badasscounseling.com. All right, Rob, have you got one?
Yeah, here we go. Marie has a question this time. She made a comment earlier, but here's her question. I found out my father was handsy with all my friends. He's now been gone for 12 years. I'm just finding this out now at age 65. I feel like my childhood was a lie. Question is, what do I do with that?
Well, my first question would be to you, not that you have to do it. My first question would be, what do you want to do? Do you want to reach out to your dad and tell him to go fuck himself? Do you want to rage on him? Do you want to what? Now, maybe there's no action. Does she?
He's been dead for 12 years.
There's that. Okay. So you're wondering, what do I do with all these feelings that I have about my childhood? In some respects, your childhood was a lie. Most interesting thing for me would be to ask you, what is it that feels like a lie? What is it that most feels like a lie about your childhood? That my father was a good guy? Is that it? And if you get a response in this, Rob, let me know. I'm really curious. Because that would seem to be the natural response. I thought my dad was a good guy. I thought I loved my dad. And now, holy shit, I find this out. And I discover perhaps my dad was a piece of shit, feeling up kids, feeling up my friends, getting handsy with my friends. I mean, that's pretty fucking sick. And the day that our parent comes off a pedestal is one thing. You know, we all have that day in our life, that period of our life where we realize, you know, my parents make mistakes or my parents are human. But to have a day where you discover your parent is somebody you utterly cannot respect.
He seemed so innocent and adoring of my mother, she says.
Yeah. So in other words, I went from a very rather positive view of my father, almost an endearing view of my father, to discover that he was a sick fuck. Right? And it disgusts you. And that's a powerful thing when they don't just come off a pedestal because, I realize my dad is human and you know, he could have a temper now and then or something like that. But to realize something like this, it's not just that they came off a pedestal and I recognize that they weren't perfect. This is, I discovered that, holy shit, I can't respect my father. I don't even like him. Or discovering that I still have mixed feelings. Because some people say, yeah, I discovered that my mom was an absolute piece of shit and she slept with my best friend. Or I discovered that my grandma, who I always respected, she was just a brutal person to my siblings, but I still love her. And so I feel guilty that I still love the person that I hate. I would ask you, do you still love the person you hate? Anyway, and so what do? You have to welcome up all the feelings. You have to count every single one of your feelings as legitimate. The love, the hate, the betrayal, the disappointment. The feelings, and your feelings, like, you know, my whole childhood was a lie. In some respects, it was. That's absolutely true. And so what you've got to begin to do is get those thoughts out of you because they're just churning inside of you. And as long as something is churning inside of us, it's not going to make head or tail. We're not going to be able to make sense of it. You begin to flush it out more and more and get your thoughts out, whether it's with your therapist or on your own or both. You have to get those out of you, and you'll begin to get out all your feelings of rage and disappointment and disgust, as well as all of your memories, all the good feelings that you have, if there are any presently, as well as the good memories. But the more you get it out of you, the more you'll begin to see clearly. But the truth is, you have to be willing to welcome the negative feelings, even towards someone you formerly thought was good. Or maybe that you still think part of them is good, but you have to welcome the negative, that you have to see this person, you have to welcome seeing this person for who they really are and everything they were, disappointment and disgusting and all. Rob, was there something you wanted to say?
She just lists some of the atrocities here. The details aren't that important, but he was not a nice man.
Okay. And so the truth is, it's horrible and it's disgusting, and to know that was your own bloodline. And then what some people will think is, well, is that in me too? Maybe they begin to think, does that, not that you have any desire to do bad things to children. I'm not saying that, but just, does it make you feel dirty? Does it make you feel ashamed of yourself being his child and what your friends potentially think of you or things like that? There's so many issues that swirl around shit like this. So many issues. And you've got to begin to purge all of that, my friend. All right. Rob, anything?
Here's a question we'll probably not answer.
Okay.
The end credits of your show include the illustrious Rob, Casey, yourself, and Mr. Morris, but who is the lovely British lady who reads the intro and the outro?
Well, I'm not going to tell her name because if that were granted, we would have done so. Rob, you want to say something?
She's a friend of the show.
Yeah, definitely a friend of the show. Big friend of the show.
And had a voiceover career in the UK years ago, narrated some TV shows.
That's right.
And wishes to remain anonymous.
That's right. And I tell you what, when we were first crafting the show, the show's conception was originally, that was KC's idea. And she's the one that pulled all the moving parts together. She's sort of the brains behind the show. And but I knew from the beginning that if I was going to have a podcast, that it had to have a British female voice, just because to me that's a commanding voice. It's just, but it's also kind of sexy. And so, the toughness and the sex appeal. And then Rob and I were both like, oh my God, we have this friend. And I'm like, fuck, Rob, you're right. And so we asked a friend and she was totally down to do it. And that is sort of, that's one of my favorite parts of our show, in addition to the music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. So a shout out to our dear friend. We'll have to tell her that one, Rob.
And we shall.
And yes, indeedy do. All right, you guys. And a nice little statement here by Jesse Kraut over on Facebook. Ain't gonna find advice like this from one of those therapists you get on an app. That's really sweet of you. Thank you. A lot of good therapists out there. And to those of you that are therapists that follow my show, I'm grateful for the work you're doing. But Jesse, it was a heartfelt thank you, and I am grateful for that. So, my friends, we strive to help. These lightning rounds will be on our podcast. They'll be posted as our podcast in the next few weeks. This is the Badass Counseling Show. Rob, any final thoughts today?
I enjoyed today's show. Thank you.
Why is that?
I don't know. I got something out of it. There were some heartfelt thoughts here. Then you got a little teary, or talked about getting teary, and I totally identify with that.
Well, that's great. And for the record, Jessica Leonard gets the final word today. Jessica over on Facebook says, that's going to drive me nuts. She sounds so familiar, and I'm good with voices. So it sounds like our friend may know Jessica, or Jessica may know our friend, Jessica Leonard. Well, thanks. You got the last word today, Jessica. I love all you guys, all my badasses. Thank you so much around the world for checking into the Badass Counseling Show. On behalf of my team, KC in the booth and Rob the Rocket, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.